Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is...
Ho, 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 ho. Jabba no wa madula solo. Happy holidays, everybody. It's time for another episode of the Sunday Matinee, the second in a single day. And as I learned in the last episode, I'm going to get rid of this hat sooner than later because it does not fit on top of my headset. So welcome back, everybody. Like I said, this is episode 15, the second we've recorded today, the second holiday-themed episode. Before I talk about what we're doing, I'm going to introduce the panel tonight. So welcome back to Sarah Moore, who has been the most regular guest, period, on this entire run. Welcome back, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
And returning from a rather epic info drop of Disney knowledge is Gary Chambers.
Hi, everybody.
So not too long ago, I recorded an episode with Dea Osborne, another one of my regular guests. We talked about traditional, conventional, classic holiday films. We are going to tackle in this episode the unconventional, the non-traditional, which for some people actually has kind of become traditional. But before we do that, let's talk about some news here. So it's been 2 weeks since we've actually recorded a full episode, and a lot of, well, not a lot, but some big news dropped in that amount of time. We're going to start off by talking about this very small independent film in a very small, little-known franchise. It's called Untitled Spider-Man 3 film. And there's been some pretty significant casting in this film. So we are recording now on December 20th, so it's been almost 2 weeks ago. Alfred Molina was announced to be returning to play the role of Dr. Octopus in Untitled Spider-Man 3. He, of course, played Dr. Octopus in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 opposite Tobey Maguire. So this is really cool to have him come back. I would still say that he is one of the better Spider-Man villains. And I'm nothing against Michael Keaton and Jake Gyllenhaal. I think they really nailed their roles, but having Alfred Molina back is awesome. But that wasn't all. That wasn't all, my friends. Not 5 hours later, it was announced that Andrew Garfield, a former Spider-Man himself, and Kirsten Dunst, a former Mary Jane Watson, were also coming back. And Tobey Maguire is currently, as far as I know, still in talks to return. Not confirmed quite yet, but I would not be surprised if we get 3 Spider-Men in this upcoming film, as well as Charlie Cox's Daredevil, which is really cool because either that means we are going to be finally bridging the gap between the movies and the Netflix shows, or we're going to be retconning Daredevil and starting from scratch. Either way, it's great because Charlie Cox really nailed that role. And it could possibly mean the return of Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, which would also be great. Mike Coulter, who played Luke Cage in the Netflix series, spoke out and said Marvel has not gotten in touch with him yet, but he is not... he wouldn't object if they don't because he's currently very busy with multiple film and television projects. That being said, as I said today earlier, I would love for Mike Coulter and for Kristen Ritter to both come back to their respective roles because those 3 really nailed it. They could just start Iron Fist over. That'd be nice.
Yeah, let's just forget about that one.
Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones.
Yep. So what do you two think? How is Spider-Man 3 suddenly the most anticipated movie coming up from Marvel in this Phase 4 lineup in a lineup that is already quite stacked?
I'm telling you, if they don't do the 3 Spider-Mans pointing at each other vis-a-vis the meme, they'll have blown a really good opportunity.
That is true. I'm sure that shenanigans are going to ensue. It's going to be a wacky film, and of course, I should also mention it's been a while since this news dropped, but of course, Benedict Cumberbatch is going to be in it as Doctor Strange, and Jamie Foxx is returning as Electro. So, like, it's a serious case of multiverse madness. Um, I was talking to Dave earlier, and I think I think what Marvel wants to do is, knowing that they may not have Tom Holland much longer, really just go all out on this last solo film and make it as big as they possibly can.
Yeah, because Tom Holland is going to age out of the role. You know, he's about to turn 13 and all that.
I don't think he's going to have to worry about aging out for a while, because
Yeah,
he's in his early 20s and he still looks like he's 13. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how old was Tobey Maguire when he was playing Spider-Man? Wasn't he? Was probably like in his 30s.
Toby,
Yeah, that's going to be.
go and play the Green Goblin now. We don't need that other guy. You know, despite his pedigree and his Oscars, you know.
Who needs Willem Dafoe? So yeah, that was some big news.
It's actually really substantial, because for those of us of a certain age, we now recognize that there are more than one, more than two legitimate Spider-Mans, because each of these actors brought something really substantive to the role. Not the same, everybody has their favorites, but you know what? If you can do that with Doctor Who, why not Spider-Man?
I also find it kind of humorous that if they should decide to canonize the 5 older Spider-Man films into the MCU and make that official, from my point of view anyway, that would suddenly make Spider-Man 3 the worst film in the MCU. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3. So potential congratulations to Thor: The Dark World, Incredible Hulk, and Avengers: Age of Ultron. You might get a promotion, because for those of us who are old enough to remember seeing Spider-Man 3 in the theater, it
was painful, man. It was just god awful.
My
Thor: The Dark
scene
World
in the bar when he was dancing and I'm blocking now. It was just horrid. It's a PTSD moment.
So my dad would often buy some pretty terrible films, and he'd come up with these wonderful, well put excuses as to these little things that made them good. Like he actually had both of not the 2015 Fantastic Four, but the first 2 Fantastic Four films. He bought those. He bought Batman versus Superman. I think he maybe even bought Suicide Squad, but he vowed, he said, I will never, ever buy Spider-Man 3. And he never did.
Did he buy Batman and Robin?
Oh yeah. But that you don't watch for. You watch that because that's Mystery Science Theater level fun.
That's completist level. That's, I must watch the entire series no matter what. I will take one for the team.
So moving on to Spider-Man, because this next topic is also rather big. So that same week, on Thursday, Disney held their big investor day, and they live streamed it. And I missed the live stream, so all the notes I took were not nearly as good as they could have been. But oh boy, did they drop just a megaton of info. And I dropped a lot of it with Dea earlier, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But I have on the blog, which I don't credit enough on this show, because this show started as a blog. So truthinfilm.wordpress.com, you can find the Sunday Matinee blog, in which I did give out some fairly detailed notes about everything that they announced, which, again, a lot. Dea and I went over the Lucasfilm and the Marvel stuff alone, and that took like 15 minutes. Gary, I imagine you have some idea of what info they dropped. Sarah, did you get to catch any of that?
I saw the Instagram posts of several of the shows with their like premiere dates. So it was definitely a lot. I mean, there was a lot of stuff. And it seemed like most of it too was stuff for Disney Plus. So
Gary, I'm going to go to you first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what are you most looking forward to of all the stuff that was dropped? I mean, you can pick like a couple things per category, because there was a lot of studio credits there.
It was really overwhelming, the number of things that they've got going on. But I think that it's the surprise Easter egg that dropped just a couple days ago as an Easter egg in the season finale of The Mandalorian. That's what I'm looking forward to. I think the most is this enigmatic character that we've come to love, and we really don't know why. And for them to bring him back, and it being so poignant in this week, in that the original Boba Fett had passed away, and that torch being clearly passed on into, pardon the pun, into a new series that's going to be released December of this coming year. I think that's a remarkable moment in both the Star Wars canon history as well as Disney history, because what's clear here is Disney has embraced Star Wars on a level that I don't think even the most ardent fans anticipated. They got their third trilogy, and for many, that was enough. There was a lot of fan service and a lot of disagreement as to whether that third film in the third trilogy actually was a proper payoff. But there was a meme that was circulated earlier this week that that demonstrated the investment that the directors had in that third trilogy, but also acknowledging the limitations, or what they thought were limitations, that they could provide fan service to those that have been around for a while, but not engage a new audience. Yet Jon Favreau has brought in The Mandalorian such a heartfelt sense of storytelling with existing characters that we all love. He's fused those two ideologies, the being able to service those that love the genre, love the canon, Star Wars canon, and those that are looking to the future for something new. That can happen. That was the proof positive I think that Disney needed in order to greenlight so many new properties that are spin-offs of existing adventures, but actually fill in a lot of the blanks, tying in the comics, the books, the films, the animated series that have already been out. It'll be a glut. It'll be a lot, as a mutual friend of ours has pointed out. But I think that Disney is expert in being able to time the release of these series so that, just like Marvel, they'll be able to fold into one another and have a logic that will allow us to follow them all and follow the continuity.
So, Gary, you credited Jon Favreau. I also want to shout out Dave Filoni, who had worked on the Clone Wars animated series and who definitely brought a lot of his influence into The Mandalorian, particularly with what they're going about to spin off with Ahsoka, which is going to be huge. I think a lot of Clone Wars fans are really going to enjoy that.
And Rosario Dawson in that role, damn.
Yep.
Just damn. She fit that role like a glove.
Yes, she did. And I'm glad to see that she has I'm glad to see that she's going to be working on the Star Wars side of things, because it sounds like she's not coming back to do Marvel anytime soon. Sarah, of all the stuff that you know about, what are you excited about coming out of this whole Disney thing?
Oh, I am all about the Loki series.
That trailer
That was like the number one reason I wanted to get Disney Plus when it was announced.
Are we a fangirl for Tom Hiddleston?
Maybe, yes.
I am. He's awesome. Who better to inhabit that role? I mean, we've seen him since 2012. We know what he's capable of doing, but he's so good at it. You can't help but watch him and smile, even though he's committing these egregious atrocities half the time and then kissing up to somebody the other half. He's perfection in the role.
Yeah.
Yeah. After seeing the WandaVision trailer, 2 WandaVision trailers at this point, and saying, "Oh, this has got to be the weirdest thing that they're doing for Disney Plus," and then seeing the Loki one's like, "Oh no, I don't know if we're going to get to the point where we can say they're done with being weird." Because wow, yeah, that Loki trailer left me with a lot of questions.
But isn't that a good thing though? When you have something that is so odd, so strange. WandaVision is a great example of that. I'm glad you mentioned it, because on the surface, when you're looking at the trailer, what is this? But because of the minds that are behind it, and the 2 leads are incredible. They know how to inhabit those roles. But don't you think that even though the trailers make it look really odd, that you just have this faith that they're going to be able to pull this together and it's going to be a really good series where you're looking forward to the next episode, just as we did with The Mandalorian, with the same eager anticipation?
Absolutely. I think the question that I have more than that is what, there's so many different potential storylines from the comic books that they could be drawing on for this. A lot of people are already theorizing that we might be diving into the House of M storyline from X-Men, in which Wanda basically gives, and of course the X-Men haven't been introduced yet, but in that storyline, she gives all the mutants everything they've ever desired. And of course, in traditional alternate universe fashion, it all goes awry, and then she ends up wiping out about 90% of the world's mutants. So people are wondering if they're going to draw from that storyline, because it's obvious that they have some kind of alternate reality thing going on in this. But that trailer too, you also get glimpses of reality, because you get to see FBI agent Jimmy Woo from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Darcy, Kat Dennings' character from the Thor movies, is back. And Teyonah Parris is there playing the grown-up Monica Rambeau, so from Captain Marvel. So we do get some outside characters coming in from the real world. So yeah, it's gonna be so interesting. And they were supposed to lead off with Falcon and Winter Soldier until it got delayed because of COVID. And I think that would have been a good series to kind of wean audiences in, because it looks to be much more formulaic Marvel, which formulaic Marvel is not a bad thing. But to really just to start us off with this absolute crazy blend of genres is going to be, I think, a better way to kick it off.
Now, I'm going to get this out simply because I've nowhere in the last 30 years have I been able to go on record as saying this. But back in the day when I was actually reading comics, going into the comic book shop and literally going through the bins and finding what I wanted to get, there was a New Mutants X-Men crossover in 1985 that was that took place in Asgard. It was this beautiful conglomeration of the New Mutants at the time, the X-Men, as well as at the Asgardians coming together to save the universe. It'll be very interesting to see how much, because at that time I thought, oh, wouldn't it be a great idea if the X-Men got on film? And all we got back in the day was really poorly written animated series and a couple of really good ones, but a lot of it was service to the kids. They were Saturday mornings, weekday afternoon fodder. They were not the more cerebral Chris Claremont scripts that you would get from the books. But Chris Claremont had written this gorgeous crossover, and it does make me wonder how much of the existing comic book stories will they be able to mine. I mean, they've got literally 50 years plus of stories to get onto the silver screen.
Yep.
And you don't necessarily have to have the same actors inhabiting the roles as they've already demonstrated with X-Men to continue the series. It can be handed off. But I can't imagine a better Loki than Tom Hiddleston at this point. And they've hit the ground with so many iconic characters and actors that people believe are these characters. I mean, who could you imagine playing Nick Fury other than who's playing Nick Fury? That's the point. And exploiting that to the best of their ability until the next generation comes, which we've established with Spider-Man can happen. What do you see, Ben, as being the opportunities to draw on existing IP from the comics and putting it up on the silver screen? Or do you think they should go more the let's write something new route?
Well, they've already proven that they can do big storylines in the movies. Civil War is, of course, the big one that they've done. And Infinity War obviously draws from the Infinity Saga in the comic books. They do have coming up on Disney Plus, Secret Invasion, which is the story of Skrulls infiltrating Earth, which will be really interesting given that in the movies so far, we've only ever seen the Skrulls depicted as heroic. But longtime Marvel Comics fans know that the Skrulls are very often the villains. So that'll be very interesting to see where they go with that. Gosh, I wouldn't mind them trying to aim with new stuff, but there's so much they can do. I would really love to see, now that it's in Disney's hands and Fox can't screw it up again, I would love to see a a proper Age of Apocalypse story, because that was when I was a kid, that was the big storyline in the 90s, was that alternate universe where Apocalypse rules and Magneto is the leader of the X-Men. So that was a big one. So that would be really cool to see. But I don't know, that they've done enough different in the movies that there's stuff. I remember there's stuff that we probably wish they could have done, but now they can't. Like World War Hulk obviously is out of the question given the trajectory that Bruce Banner has taken in the movies. I mean, speaking of that, they kind of touched on Planet Hulk in Ragnarok. It wasn't the Planet Hulk we got in the comic books, but they integrated it in the best way possible. And actually probably the only way they could, given that whole debacle they have with Hulk's, it's like its release rights or its distribution rights being stuck at Universal. And Universal having the call on how do we handle the Hulk as a solo character. So yeah, I would guess that's why they haven't gotten to do stuff like World War Hulk, because they would have to they'd probably have to do it as an Avengers series. And probably have to not even use Hulk's name in the title. But yeah,
the New Mutants feature film that came out most recently was a total dud, COVID or no COVID. How could they reintroduce those characters and integrate that into the X-Men universe and fold it into the MCU?
We talking just mutants in general or the New Mutants specifically?
The New Mutants specifically.
Well, I have a theory of this could be applied to the X-Men, but I definitely think this is going to be how they introduce the Fantastic Four easily. So one of the big announcements was that the third Ant-Man and the Wasp movie is going to be titled Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which implies that there's going to be some possible time jumping and possible dimension jumping going on in that film. And rightfully so. They've been building up to that over the first two films. And they announced at the end of the Marvel panel that Ant-Man director Peyton Reed is going to be taking the helm with Fantastic Four. So to me, it makes sense that perhaps he's going to use Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania as a way to bring the Fantastic Four in from an alternate dimension, so that he already has some time to play with them as characters before jumping into a new film. And it'd be a great way to introduce them without having another origin film the way they did with Spider-Man in Civil War, because we don't need another Fantastic Four origin film. We've had two bad ones already.
I like Silver Surfer.
I mean the early 2000 ones, they're cheesy fun, but we have to be, and the 2015 one we just don't talk about.
No, we don't.
But those two, they're cheesy, but they're not that good. And it's kind of too.
Chris Evans was wonderful.
I know.
We can't deny that. He was so good.
Oh yeah. Actually, I've always said the road to greatness in the MCU can start with Fantastic Four's Human Torch, because Chris Evans obviously was Human Torch and Michael B. Jordan was Human Torch, and then he graduated to being one of their best villains. So yeah, there's like you said, there's a lot of history to draw from. And I'm sure that they're going to pull little bits and pieces of it in ways that they can make their own.
Now, I have to ask this just because it's contextually appropriate. You could probably build a whole show around it. The heir apparent to the Black Panther franchise, and more importantly, the suit. In light of Letitia Wright's recent statements, which didn't actually resonate well with a lot of fans, how should that play out, you think?
I honestly don't know. I do not know what statements these. I know there were some statements, but I didn't see them at all on Twitter. It wasn't something that trended for more than a few hours. So I never caught wind of what was actually said.
Let's just say that she, without actually hashing over what she said, it's more the fans were, really? This is coming from you? And it's put some fans off on her inheriting the Black Panther title. Do you think that she should logically inherit the suit?
From a storytelling standpoint, yes. That's how it was
in the comics, right?
That's how it was in the comics.
Yeah.
And they did say, it's important to contextualize this as well. Kevin Feige did say on Investor Day, we are not going to recast the role of T'Challa, which is very, very important to know. So I think it's the most logical step to take. But that film is still 6 months out from starting to shoot and a year and a half from release. So we really don't have any concrete information on it at all at this point, except that we're not going to recast T'Challa and we're not going to digitally insert Chadwick Boseman, which are the two best takeaways we can get right now. Whew. That is a lot. That's a lot of news talking. Let's talk about some. Let's get to the actual. Again, let's get in the meat and potatoes of this episode here. So it's December 20th. It is the holiday season. Christmas, the biggest holiday of December, commercially anyway, is 5 days away. And we get a lot of movies that take place during Christmas. We get a lot of movies about Christmas, some that are not really about Christmas, but it's there. And those are the ones we're going to talk about. I asked everyone to pick 3 movies. I'm going to go ahead and up that to 4 if you've got them, because we were supposed to have one more guest on this episode, and unfortunately she could not be here tonight. So we have a little bit of wiggle room to talk between the 3 of us about a few extra films. So I'm going to go, I want to say around the circle, but every time I point and then post this later, the recording, everyone is swapped. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to go over to Gary first. Gary, what is your first? Well, actually, let's ask this question here. So what do we mean by these non-traditional? What do you consider a non-traditional, unconventional holiday film? Gary, I'll just jump to you first.
A holiday film is any picture that may take place with Christmas as a setting, but really isn't about the holiday. It's not celebrating either the sacred or the secular aspects of Christmas. It just happens to be Christmas, and we're telling a story around that setting.
Sarah, what would you say?
I mean, I would agree with that, but I think I would also add movies that maybe are revolving around Christmas, but are not wholesome or feel good or about the joy of the season.
I have a feeling I know one of the movies.
Number one film together, like 1, 2, 3, we say it.
I think everyone knows what it is. I mean, honestly.
Then let's do it. 1, 2, 3.
Die Hard.
Thank you.
See, I didn't say that because my number 1 is Krampus.
Well, it's not necessarily. I wouldn't call it my number 1, but it's like it is sort of looked at as the holy grail of unconventional holiday films. Sort of, even though it wasn't the first, even though Lethal Weapon was a year earlier, everyone sort of points to Die Hard as the pinnacle of like sort of the original unconventional. Even though there were probably even a lot more before Lethal Weapon. I'm sure some of the older horror movies in the 70s and 80s, there's probably a few, like the original Black Christmas, I think, is...
Black Christmas, Silent Night, Deadly Night.
See, Sarah, this is why I have you on, the horror expert.
You know, I was going through a list, Sarah, just yesterday when I was doing a little homework, and it was fascinating because there was like 2 films that were light and fluffy and heart affirming, and then there was like this laundry list of gore and horror, and what have I been missing?
Yeah, there's even some. There was like one called like Elves or something that's like a horror movie. There was like Santa's Sleigh, as in SLAY. I haven't seen that either, but there was a lot of horror ones that was kind of fun.
Oh, speaking of horror ones, I may have to talk about this one like next year when we come back after a break, because I discovered it last night on Amazon Prime and I didn't have time to watch it, but it crosses right into one of my all-time favorite genres. This is Santa Jaws. I don't think we've talked too much about this on the show since we started, but I love bad shark movies. I also love good shark movies. Jaws is one of the greatest movies ever made, but I love...
Sharknado is on your list, isn't it, Ben?
No, actually, I have not seen Sharknado, but I love films like, oh gosh, both of the what is it, 42 meters down. Those are both pretty bad.
Deep.
I actually haven't seen The Deep. What else is Shark Lake with Dolph Lundgren. Oh, that one's bad. It's like Mega Shark versus Mecha Shark. That's some solid entertainment right there. So yeah,
Solid.
Solid meaning it goes very well with rum. But I digress. So what is it that sets these films? I think we're already getting very much into this question. What is it that sets these films apart from their traditional, classic, or conventional counterparts? Obviously, we've got violence,
Blood, gore, sharpie things, guns.
lots of action.
I would say often satire too, like satirizing the more commercial aspect of Christmas. The fact that it's supposed to be love and togetherness, but it's become commercial and like everybody stomping over each other on Black Friday.
That actually-
and a realistic, reality-based, jaundiced view of culture seems to make their appearances in this film. Come to the coast, we'll have a few laughs. And lines like that enter the vernacular without the one that has the expletive. But it doesn't necessarily spoil Christmas per se, but it does have kind of a skew look at the holiday season, ratcheting up our commentary on the commercialialism and decrying the lack of heart and sentiment that should go into the holiday season, but in sometimes in a very healthy way, because we're pulling our way away from the saccharine and looking at the holiday through a realist's eyes via these motion pictures and having some fun in the process. If you're a fan of sarcasm and if you're a fan of poking fun at tradition, as I am, then a lot of these films actually are fantastic, and they usually come around to having a heart at the end. I'm not saying that any Christmas film with a shark in it meets that criteria, but many of the others do.
It's interesting too, because I was talking with my husband before this, and another interesting thing to consider, I think, is films that were kind of alternate Christmas films, but have like become more classic Christmas, just because like I think a new generation of people, those are kind of like their favorites from childhood. So because I was like, would you consider like Home Alone an alternative Christmas movie? And I saw on one of the lists I was looking up for homework too, A Christmas Story as an alternate Christmas movie. And I'm like, that's a classic one, isn't it? Like, I've never thought of that as not a classic Christmas movie, but maybe to some people, I mean, compared to something like Miracle on 34th Street, yeah, that would be kind of an alternative Christmas movie. But like for our generation, that is like a classic one.
Yeah, I would say Christmas Story falls into that. And I think there are a lot of contemporary holiday films that are going to sort of become classics that are conventional in the Christmas sense. I'm going to shout out to this one again, like I did in the last episode. If you have Netflix, check out Jingle Jangle. It is an absolutely delightful, wonderful film.
Instant Christmas classic. Very good picture. And that's actually a good point to bring up, Ben, because there are some films that enter that vernacular in American culture of instant classic, such as that. I would also raise last year's Claus or Arthur Christmas from a few years ago, fall into that category of these are films that are not just Christmas based, but they are about Christmas. They are about the Christmas spirit and making them more traditional, but they don't have to necessarily be 60, 70, 80 years old to be classic. They can be current films that can be classic. I think Elf falls into that category fairly easily too.
And actually, I find it very interesting that one of the films that's regarded as a Christmas classic really only views the story through the lens of Christmas in the last like 20 minutes, and that's It's a Wonderful Life.
Agreed.
So it's like you really can sort of pick that and watch it any time of year and it's fine. But it's like, man, we really do just center in on those last 20 minutes and really just make that the important part of it all.
But man, it's a dark film. I mean,
Yep.
Trish and I just rewatched that a few days ago, and we were both remarking to each other as we're watching this glorious 4K restoration. It's like, wow, this is a new film, even though it's 70 years old or however old it is. 1946, as I recall. You do the math. Math is hard. But the entirety, the first two acts especially, are just wall to wall. This is really dark. This is a man who's not getting what he wants. Was that considered a Christmas classic in 1946? I think not. I think it took it going into the public domain and being seen year after year after year on network television in increasingly poorer picture and poorer presentation with all the commercials and so forth, for it to be accepted as a Christmas classic. So we consider it today. Well, then that raises the question, how many Christmas films are being released now that aren't considered classic, but in 20 or 30 years could? And as we've seen with Elf, that amount of time just goes by really quickly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not, Christmas films are not a genre I particularly follow, because so in a lot of cases, you get stuck with a Hallmark syndrome where you just get the same formulaic film year after year with the same rich guy who has to choose the slightly lesser off brunette over the rich blonde. And they're all white.
Hey, sometimes
I was
it's
thinking
the
of you
slightly lesser blonde from the rich brunette. They change it up sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a big change up for them.
Every one of those films should have a subtitle. You know, it says blah blah blah, a Hallmark movie. I see white people.
Yeah. I posted a joke on Facebook a few years ago that at this point Lacey Chabert should just have her own float in the Thanksgiving Day parade. So yeah, let's see. Let's just jump right into it. What Gary? What is one of your favorite non-conventional holiday films?
I'll drop this just so others can fill in the blanks of the title. There are few who deny that what I do, I am the best. For my talents are renowned far and wide. You can sing the rest of the lyrics on your own as you wish. I think that an iconic Christmas, not Christmas film is The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it's among the first that I watch every single year. I watch it so early, in fact, it's Halloween. It is this beautiful amalgamation of the holidays. It seems to fall right into that gap, which Disney, hearkening back to that previous discussion, has perfectly exploited in their properties by having the Haunted Mansion holiday overlay at Disneyland every year. And that was proof positive to me when that came out in 2001, that this film is not only iconic and representative of the art of stop motion animation, which is gorgeous, directed by Henry Selick, 1993, who is an unsung hero. And folks, if you have not seen how the holiday movies are made on Netflix, please do. They feature Elf and The Nightmare Before Christmas. And it gives you a nice breakdown of how these films were concepted and how they were created and the difficulties they're in and their cultural impact. And The Nightmare Before Christmas seems to have done that latter bit really well. It was released now, almost 30 years ago, and yet very few kids that go through that period between Halloween and Christmas don't watch this film, which has been reissued over time. It's been converted to 3D. But you can get the thing on Blu-ray easily every single year. It goes into the top 100 on Amazon's best-selling Blu-rays list. And it has become iconic. But is it because it's a Christmas movie? Not really. This is about a character who is despondent about his own holiday, and Christmas appears to be this panacea, this joy-filled, colorful, light-filled experience that he wants to bring home. And then it infuses itself with a bit of Wizard of Oz syndrome, and the lead character, the Pumpkin King, Jack Skellington, realizes there's no place like home. So the story is fairly simple, but it's done so gloriously in song And stop motion animation, which is yet to be topped, even though there have been several films since that use that particular technology. It enhances Christmas in the sense that we are all fallible human beings. We're all fallible creatures, just as Jack Skellington was, and we have someone to identify with. That sometimes the journey that we get on is not necessarily going to take us to our destination, and you didn't realize that you required no real change. You just needed to live the life that was closest to who you are. And by revealing that, it reveals a true to Christmas story, vis-a-vis Christmas, not Christmas.
It's funny that you bring this one up, Gary, because as Sarah can recall, this was also brought up on our favorite Halloween films episode. So
we don't know which one is it. It's both, but
it is literally the perfect film to watch from September through the end of December. And not only
I was going to say Disneyland does the Haunted Mansion for Nightmare Before Christmas from Halloween to Christmas. So.
And not only has it been reissued, but it is like one of their big merchandise machines. Is you see action figures, calendars, cookie jars, everything. Nightmare Before Christmas. Man, that's just. I think I see more Nightmare Before Christmas merchandise than I see a lot of Disney stuff. It's just, it's a super easy sell for them for these, this end of the year.
And no one, especially Tim Burton, would have recognized that the merchandising value of that particular film when it was being produced. From his perspective, these were characters that he created when he was still working at Disney and fresh off of his graduation from Cal Arts and drawing these beautiful characters in 2 dimensions, and then it being translated into stop motion by Henry Selick. He could not have possibly imagined the merchandising opportunities that Disney has now. And as you may recall, this was a picture that was actually released on the Touchstone brand back in the day because Disney didn't think that there was a market for it, especially with kids. They recognized that once it became a hit, which was after its initial release and in subsequent plays on television and in video, and it just seemed to get more and more traction over the years, its merchandising potential, which they have exploited to the nth degree, both in the stores and in the parks. And it's become an iconic character, as you say, Sarah, from early September all the way through New Year's, because it can cross those holidays. So it's merchandising not just at Christmas time, but throughout all of those months.
Before I move on and let Sarah talk about her first film, Gary, I just want to point out now that you are the brand new owner of a PlayStation 5, if the Kingdom Hearts trilogy of games is backwards compatible on that console, I'm not sure if all of them are. That is a game series you should check out. It's a sort of Final Fantasy meets Disney RPG series, and Nightmare Before Christmas is a world you can visit in one of those games. I can't remember which one, but obviously you're Disney, so you would appreciate just about every world you can visit in that game. So now that I'm done on that tangent, Sarah, what deliver us your first film?
Well, I already kind of gave a little spoiler of what my first film was, but mine is, of course, Krampus, which when I was making this list, I was thinking like, oh, that could kind of be considered a classic horror or a classic Christmas movie, just because it does. I mean, it completely revolves around Christmas. I mean, it starts off with the shopping spree and people like running each other down with carts and throwing things and like tearing things away from people. And then it goes straight to like the kid who like attacks another kid in the Christmas play. And then it's like the family dreading their extended family, like coming to the house for Christmas dinner. And this poor kid just like loves Christmas and hates that it makes everybody so angry. And, so of course he's going to like do something that, is going to, make something happen. And then it happens to be, he like, calls in a like Santa demon that terrorizes them all. But, so recently on Facebook, somebody asked like a question on a group I'm in that was like, drop your favorite Christmas movie here. And I did that one. And all these people were like, I've never heard of that. What is that? I'm like, oh, it's a Christmas horror movie. Oh yeah, I would never watch that. Like, so apparently it does count as alternative then. But that only not only became my favorite Christmas movie the first time I saw it, but it's like one of my favorite movies overall from the last few years. And Ben and I actually saw that with Dustin at Cinnabar, so that was a fun experience.
Yeah.
But I love that it's a horror movie and it's genuinely creepy and scary, but it's also like a really great satire of all the kind of ugly underbelly of the Christmas season, which, having spent years working retail, working at Starbucks, you see that ugly underbelly, and there was a good amount of years that I kind of hated the Christmas season because of that. So I think that movie is just like a brilliant satire also of kind of the less savory things about Christmas, but then it still kind of has this family togetherness, and they appreciate, that they're all kind of like shoved together, but then there's like a twist ending. But it's just, it's really fun. It's funny. It's like a funny horror movie. There's a lot of great laughs, but it's also like really creepy. So yeah, that's become one of my new favorites to watch at Christmas time.
Oh, I haven't seen it since I think it was like just days after we saw it. I took Dad to see it, and that was the last time I saw it. So I haven't seen it at home yet. But I do remember like just the knife wielding gingerbread men.
I know.
And what is it? It's like a Jack in the Box, right? In the attic.
Yeah, there's a whole there's like a weird angel
long
creature,
neck.
and there's a whole bunch of crazy like Christmas monsters.
Yeah, if you're a fan of the gingerbread man and Shrek, don't watch this film.
Not the buttons. Not the buttons.
And yeah, what an ending. Ooh, yeah, that was a
But yeah, if you like your Christmas movies with some good satire and some like good horror, definitely check that one out if you haven't.
Okay, somebody
seen
explain
it.
to
It's
me
awesome.
how a picture could be made for $15 million, but how a film I've never even heard of grosses $61.5 million, and where are the 12 sequels?
you've never heard of Krampus?
No, I had to look it up.
Well, to be fair, it released either right before or right after The Force Awakens, so it was kind of overshadowed. But I mean, to pull 60 million out while running concurrently with The Force Awakens is pretty good.
Yeah. Well, especially on a budget of $15 million, they turned a profit on this picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gary, you haven't seen it. You definitely should. It's got Adam Scott.
I believe it was pretty like critically acclaimed, or I feel like it had some good like good reviews.
Yeah, it was. I think it scored pretty well on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
66%. So it's well above Rotten. That's amazing. Okay, so this was a trip worth taking just to know that there is a Christmas film that I have to watch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right. Well, I'm gonna jump in with my first one here, which is very much a intersects with Christmas holiday coincidentally. And that is, and I just watched it this morning for the first time in a while, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is an absolutely hysterical little film. So has anyone else here seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
Oh yes.
I saw it. It's been a long time. I don't remember it very well.
Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer, right?
Yep. In the Robert Downey Jr. in the role that got him Iron Man. So yeah, really, it just takes place at Christmas. It really has nothing to do with the holidays. Robert Downey Jr. plays a small-time thief who he's robbing a toy store. The robbery goes awry. He's chased by police into an audition and nails the audition and is shipped off to Hollywood and is suddenly finds himself in Hollywood. And now he's getting detective lessons for a role that he is, supposed to be training for. And that Val Kilmer is the detective training him. And Val Kilmer just has some of the greatest dialogue ever in that film. It is a very smart, quick, fun comedy. And of course, it takes place at Christmas time because it's written by Shane Black, who traditionally sets all of his films at Christmas time. This is the writer of Lethal Weapon. He wrote and directed Iron Man 3. His sort of follow-up film to this was The Nice Guys, which I don't recall that one having quite as much Christmas in it as his other films. But
that was Ryan Reynolds' vehicle, as I recall.
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling, okay.
And Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. But God, there is some fun Christmas stuff in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but really it is more about the smart, fun, comedic dialogue and the sort of neo-noir comedy vibe that it gives off. And it has Michelle Monaghan, who was in season 1 of True Detective, as the love interest. I think the most Christmassy this film gets is like all the weird Christmas Hollywood parties they go to, and they are weird. Kind of that seedy underbelly of Hollywood being displayed in that film. But yeah, if you're a fan of Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man, you should definitely check out Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, because you can see Tony Stark happening already in that film. He didn't have to change too much. And it was only about 3 years before Iron Man. So they picked him up right after that and said, do this. So yeah, very, very, very unconventional. Not a lot of Christmas theme going on, but you know what? It's still fun, and it's got a few holiday jingles going on in it. So check it out. Gary, what is your next film?
My next picture is We're No Angels, which it seems to have this depending on who you ask, if it's a traditional Christmas film, it's an alternative film. I consider it an alternative film because it's about a thief and 2 murderers. Those are the leads, played by Humphrey Bogart, Aldo Ray, and Peter Ustinov. And it takes place at the end of the 19th century on Devil's Island, where they were convicts or are convicts, and they escape prison. And they land in one of the local shops, which is run by a Frenchman. And the owner of the shop is his cousin, who is just a horrible, horrible character, a horrible human being as a character. And they effectively got into the shop in order to rob it blind and be able to get on a ship and get on their way and complete their escape, get off of Devil's Island. But what ends up happening is that they befriend this mother, father, and daughter and help out the shop by fixing the roof, doing some general cleaning, cooking the books. And when this character comes in, the owner, who maligns Felix for his mismanagement of the shop, whether he is or isn't really relevant. It's just that that's his perception. And these 3 angels really come to the rescue. Murder does ensue, but not in a way that you might expect. Hilarity does happen, but not in a way that you might expect. And the whole thing takes place within literally hours on Devil's Island. And it's absolutely charming. And it exemplifies 3 of the greatest performances from 3 actors of the era. And you'll never see Humphrey Bogart in a more charming film than We're No Angels. So that's definitely number 2 on my list.
Fun fact, that movie is based on a play called My 3 Angels that I starred in at one point in time.
Right on. Which role did you play?
I was the daughter. It was like Marie Louise or something
Perfect.
like that, I think was the name. Something Louise. It was a long time ago, back in my ingenue days.
Yeah, my ingenue days are well behind me too. So, yeah, I get it.
But yeah, it is a cute story. I've never seen the movie, but the play was a cute story.
Now, Gary, did you know that it's been remade?
Should it have been?
I'm gonna take that as a no. In 1994, and I've seen this version, but it's been quite a while since I've seen it. It was remade as Trapped in Paradise, starring Nicolas Cage, Dana Carvey, and John Lovitz.
That could be interesting. Yeah.
He looks very
Absolutely.
skeptical.
I honestly could not remember how good it is. I could tell you that I'm looking at its IMDb page right now. It's got an average of 6.0, which is not great, but that's certainly above terrible. I'm sure that John Lovitz and Dana Carvey are absolutely adorable because they tended to be like that in the early 90s. So yeah, I remember seeing that. I remember seeing that version, and yeah, it's very cute. I would like to see the original because obviously Humphrey Bogart is, typically, unless you get one of those weird roll of the dice performances from Nick Cage, Humphrey Bogart is definitely better. So yeah, that's a good choice, Gary.
Yeah, Humphrey Bogart, Nick Cage.
She said it. I didn't. I wasn't even holding up a cue card.
I don't feel bad about that statement whatsoever.
leaving Las Vegas notwithstanding, and raising Arizona notwithstanding.
Did you see the Wicker Man remake?
Oh no, I've seen the original. I don't need to see the remake.
Don't.
I've seen the highlight reel of the Wicker Man remake. That's all I need to see, and that is hysterical.
But oh man, Nicolas Cage lost his acting card.
Oh yeah, the original's a classic. I'd like to now welcome everyone to Halloween episode 2, where we share all of our favorite Halloween movies again.
I should have put that on my list of Halloween movies.
That's a great one.
Of it, after the fact.
Anyway,
that should probably be like favorite Mayday movies or something. The next movie I'm on my list is a movie I really love to watch at Christmas time for years, although it makes me kind of sad now because Kevin Spacey's in it. And he's creepy.
Oh.
But it is a movie called The Ref. You look like you've maybe heard of it.
I've heard of it.
It's definitely kind of it's a dark. So it's another one where the main character is a criminal who.
Is it a shark?
No, he's not a shark.
Not a shark.
Maybe there's sharks in the sequel. I don't know, because they do like kind of escape by water at the end. But so the main character is a thief who's pulled some big heist, and he's like waiting to hear from his. It's been a while since I've watched it now, but I know he's waiting for his like person that's going to help him escape. And he ends up like jumping into the car of this couple who's like arguing to take them hostage and like makes them drive him to their house so that he can hide out until it's safe to leave. But this couple is like the most dysfunctional couple like ever that argue about everything. And they're just like go into like big, anyway. And Dennis Leary is the main character, the thief. He's pretty funny in it. Kevin Spacey is the husband, and then Judy Davis, I think, is the wife. They're really funny together, but it's also kind of like it was funny. I liked it a lot as a kid, and then I watched it as an adult, and I was kind of like, oh man, this is like kind of awkward. They really have a lot of like dysfunction going on. But the Christmassy part that comes in is that it's Christmas Eve, and that the family is coming, for Christmas Eve dinner, and the extended family. And so he can't escape in time. Like he still hasn't heard from his guy that's going to help him escape. So they have to like pretend he's their therapist who's there like at their Christmas Eve dinner. And yeah, kind of, anyway, he ends up kind of helping everybody, even though he's like this, a-hole thief who just yells at everybody. But it's a pretty interesting, funny movie. Like I said, it's kind of not as much fun to watch now because Kevin Spacey's creepy, but it was one of my favorites for many years. And at the end, it is kind of have like that Christmas like feeling of love at the end because a lot of stuff gets healed
Well, I say this a lot on this show about those artists who have sort of fallen from grace, and that is don't ever feel guilty about how you felt about a piece of art when you first saw it, uh, not knowing what you know now about that person, like Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, I mean, there's some other like Usual Suspects, LA Confidential. There's a lot of movies that I just can't like. I mean, I have to still love them because they were like awesome movies.
American
but...
Beauty, Superman Returns, House of Cards. I mean,
yeah,
the body of work that guy leaves behind.
But it's always a bummer when you find out an actor you like is not
Truly, because
well,
it almost feels like you have to say, I left Kevin Spacey behind. The body of work that he produced before everything came out seems legit. We can follow that. But anything he does in the future is tainted. It's difficult not to look at his previous work and not go, Kevin Spacey, creeper.
Well, I can still look at Superman Returns and never have to watch it again, but not necessarily because of Kevin Spacey, just because that movie just kind of sucks. Apologies out there to all the everyone out there standing Superman Returns. It's still better than Zack Snyder's DC movies.
I don't think I ever saw Superman Returns. I haven't been a huge Superman fan overall. So I haven't like rushed out to see the Superman movies.
It was fine.
It needed about 12 more edits.
Yeah, it could have standed some editing. Anyway, so much digressing. So my next film is a little more wholesome this time around. It's actually, we're going to talk about another DC movie here, one that I was very, very wary about until I finally saw it. And now it's one of my favorite modern DC movies, and that is Shazam. I didn't know going in that it was going to take place around the Christmas holiday because it was released in April. But they definitely hammer that right into you at the very beginning of the film with the very first scene. And then again, the Christmas element of it really gets driven home, I think, at the end, and it's all about family. And if you haven't seen Shazam, spoiler alert, have you seen it, Sarah?
I have not seen it, no.
Okay. I'm about to drop a spoiler if that's okay.
It's okay. I might see it someday, but I definitely have to prioritize, and DC movies that aren't Wonder Woman aren't highly prioritized for me.
So our wonderful, just warm-hearted protagonist, Billy Batson, who actually doesn't really become warm-hearted until the end of the film, shares his amazing gift, his ability to transform into a superhero with his adopted family, and only together can they defeat the evil Dr. Silva. And it was just such a beautiful moment. It's actually, I'd say, and this was a film that released right before Endgame, and that moment when they all transform in the end it's on par with what they're doing with Marvel. It's just like, oh my gosh, this was so cool. In a movie that really, I was really worried about that film. The first time I saw Zachary Levi in the suit, it was like, oh, that looks really cheesy. But through the magic of editing, like somehow it feels absolutely right. And it's basically it's the superhero version of Big. Like it's learning to be an adult with that childlike mentality, and learning to embrace your power and to share that power and to do good with it. It is probably their most family friendly film, while at the same time having some of the most horrific monsters of any superhero movie. Check out Shazam. It's again, it's one of the better DC movies to come out in recent years as well, along with Wonder Woman, and probably. Yeah, I'd probably say Shazam, Wonder Woman, and Birds of Prey. Those are the three.
Oh, I still need to see that.
But Shazam is your Christmas superhero movie that isn't Iron Man 3. Gary, what do you got for us?
Joyeux Noel was released 2005. and is about, and the reason why I choose this as a non-conventional Christmas film, because even though the Christmas really pervades the entire picture, it's also a war movie, because what it's about is the 2014 ceasefire between French and Scottish forces and German forces. It's effectively the German chancellor or the supreme leader, if you will, sent a operatic tenor to the front lines for a solo tour. And he lands where there are two competing factions at war with each other and sings. And it brings the French and the Scots to their feet to applaud. And the entire picture is about how, for this very brief period of time, that warring factions can come together via the Christmas spirit. And even though it's a war film per se, it's really more about the human condition and being able to find commonality despite our differences with one another and come together in the most egregious of circumstances. And what happens afterwards? And it was a Best Picture nominee, Best Foreign Picture nominee back in the day, and well-deservedly so. Some call it kind of saccharine, which I would argue that many films that have moved into the Christmas classics canon started out by some of the more harsh critics calling them saccharine or cheesy. And Joyeux Noël definitely falls into that category. It is a feel-good film, but it's a feel-good film that has a really valuable message. And the one message that comes across most poignantly is that it doesn't really matter who you are, where you come from, what you do, there is a way to find commonality. And it shouldn't require some sort of mitigating circumstance or influence in order for that to happen. This is just how we should live our lives, with inclusivity and trying to find that common ground. And this movie exemplifies that, but packages it in a way that is historically relatively accurate and gives us a story of something that is so unbelievable, but yet it actually happened, as the best films that are based in a true story come across.
It actually reminds me of hearing about how on Christmas Day during World War One, everyone would come out of the trenches and they would play field sports. It was the one day they would stop fighting.
Yeah,
that sounds a lot like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's definitely portrayed in the picture itself. And it's available still through the major streaming services. So yeah, by all means, before Christmas or even anytime through New Year's, when the spirit moves you, Joyeux Noël is a foreign film well worth reading the subtitles for.
And we always say that on this show. Subtitles are your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Do not let a foreign language impede you from watching a film. Please. There's some very good foreign films out there. Most of them better than what we get here.
Mm.
Sarah, what is your next film?
My next one is actually one that I only thought of to put on this list because I was looking through a list of alternative Christmas movies, kind of trying to find my movies, and this was on the list. And this was actually a movie I used to watch at Christmas time a lot when I was younger, but I haven't watched it around Christmas time for many years. And it's probably, I would say, one of the more Christmas adjacent movies on my list. Like, it has a much, like the first two I mentioned fully take place at Christmas. This one just has like part of it that does. But it is Edward Scissorhands, which, touches on Christmas a little bit. And there's a lot of him out in the snow shaving ice and the girl dancing in it. And so while definitely not a movie that focuses on Christmas, it has some, like, I would say, powerful Christmassy imagery in it. And it's been a while since I've watched it, but was it when he was going to give him the gift of like his hands was about like a Christmas gift too? I think, yeah. So it definitely has some Christmas themes and pieces of Christmas in it. But I would say it's definitely not like very focused on Christmas, because it takes place over like a long time. But yeah, no, that's I'm sure there's probably not a lot of people that haven't seen that movie, maybe, but
Well, and like Nightmare Before Christmas, that's one of those films that because it's also basically a Frankenstein story, you can watch it, from September all the way through December, and it just fits.
Yeah, it definitely kind of has a Halloween-y vibe to it as well.
Tim Burton, that was that era when he was just very good at sort of blending in the holidays into one wonderful package. I missed that era of Tim Burton.
Yeah, I know. He was so good for so long.
And not actually, Big Eyes was pretty good. That's probably the most recent film of his that I appreciated.
That was good.
But
and I actually really liked his version of Sweeney Todd. I thought he did an excellent job putting that musical to film. I had high hopes for that going in. And that was almost going to be on my list. I think just because it came out at Christmas time for a while, I really thought of that as being a Christmas movie for some reason. But it really has absolutely nothing to do with Christmas. It just came out like at Christmas time in the theater.
Oh, it has plenty to do with Christmas, Sarah. At Christmas time, we always see the color green and, of course, the color of sweet, sweet blood, which is red.
That's true.
There's plenty of that in Sweeney Todd.
There is definitely a lot of red in that movie.
So my third film, which is the film I added, and I'm adding this one in honor of Andrea, who couldn't be with us here tonight, because we talked about it briefly after we did the Disney recording a few weeks ago. That is Gremlins. And oh boy, I watched Gremlins very recently, and hadn't watched it in so long, and it really is just such a blast. What a wonderful film. What a wonderful, what a perfect, like, it does. It makes me miss the days of animatronics and stop motion horror films. We get a little bit of that in Krampus, but there's a lot of CG stuff going on there. But man, I'd say Krampus actually owes a lot to Gremlins and the wild mischief that those little monsters get into on. I don't remember if it is Christmas Eve or not, but it is definitely a Christmas adjacent horror film, where you find out that some presents really do. It really makes you think, if I ever get a pet for Christmas, I really do need to take care of it. Man, I should really, for those of you who may not be old enough to appreciate what this film is, so a young man gets a present from his father, who basically steals this from a sort of Chinese antique curiosity shop, and it's a little. They're called a mogwai, and I wouldn't know how to describe them. I guess the best way to describe them is a white and brown baby Yoda. And they're
that's what I was just gonna say. That was the baby Yoda of the 80s.
Yeah. And you have to be very responsible with these things. You cannot get them wet. You cannot expose them to sunlight, or it will kill them. And you cannot, under any circumstances, feed them after midnight. Because this is a movie, rules need to be broken. And the creature gets wet and multiplies. And its mischievous brethren are able to dupe our protagonist, our wonderful little hero, into feeding them after midnight, and they turn into hideous little gremlins that go on a hilarious rampage. What I love about this film is it doesn't take itself seriously. When you look at it, you think, okay, how do these things they're super smart. They're smarter than they should be. But that's the whole joy of it, is they run around dressing up in weird costumes, parodying old things. I love the scene where they're like absolutely destroying the bar, and they're like playing cards in a corner, and they know how to use guns. And it's like, this is so goofy. This is the goofiest Christmas movie ever. But You know, it ends happily. The gremlins are killed. Gizmo goes back to where he belongs. And then there's a sequel, which I haven't seen that one in years, but
I don't know if I ever watched the sequel.
the sequel
Arguably
has
better than the first because it's got Tony Randall in it.
not only that, it's got Christopher Lee as a mad scientist. So it is an absolute must see. Yeah. So yeah, Christmas horror is definitely a big thing tonight. But yeah, Gremlins is definitely Krampus is funny because it's definitely satirizing, you know, how we view Christmas nowadays. Gremlins is just funny because it's funny. Like I said, it does not take itself seriously. I actually, you know, I look at it and it's like, man, I can't watch this movie seriously. Otherwise, I'd be questioning everything that goes on in it. But sometimes you just got to have that ridiculous, crazy film in your life.
I feel like the 80s was the age of pure and unadulterated entertainment in movies. Just like, yeah, something you can't question too much, but you know, they're just so much fun and so joyful, like, but full of action and full of horror, but there's like always this kind of pure joy. It's something that's like very 80s to me, which I feel like the first season of Stranger Things like captured really well, was that 80s sense of like, even when things are horrific, like it's so entertaining and so joyful, like not how everything has to be dark and gritty and like satirical now.
I think season 3 captured that as well, especially when they got to the end with the Never Ending Story episode.
I still haven't finished season 3.
Oh, I'll say no more.
Okay. Get back to it at some point because I definitely need to see season 4 because Robert Englund is in it.
All right. Enough about Gremlins.
Okay.
Enough about Gremlins. Gary, were you able to come up with a fourth?
Oh
since
yeah, I did.
Okay,
and
good.
Since, my thunder was already stolen, and that's perfectly okay. I did have a fifth in line,
cool.
And my theory behind this, and the reason why I think this is an alternative film, I'm going to see if I can match Sarah's setup. I mean, that was the most beautiful setup ever. Your most recent film. If you have a picture about a failing, aging rock star using a Christmas song to relaunch his career, or if you have a character who literally dry humps on film to get the right light for the cinematographer, this is not a traditional Christmas film. And of course, now I've given it away. This is Love Actually. At 2 hours and 15 minutes, arguably it could go through a couple more edits, but without fail, this is a film that I will weep before the end of it, especially at the end. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers other than to say that this is a picture that is just filled with heart. Some have called it saccharine. I prefer to think of it as a picture that realizes fully fleshed out characters as actual human beings, because not every story has a happy ending. But for those that are uninitiated completely, this is about several sets of characters as they go through their holiday season and what they go through in order to come together in their own versions of family. And Hugh Grant, Martin Freeman, Rowan Atkinson, I think has a just something a little bit beyond a cameo in the thing. Throw out the other stars that are in this picture, folks.
Oh gosh, I haven't seen
Laura
it.
So many.
Colin Firth, right?
Colin Firth, Alan Rickman,
Emma Thompson.
Emma Thompson, who's his partner in the picture. Anyway, most of the folks that are viewing this, I would think, have seen Love Actually and understand perhaps why I think of this as an alternative film. And it's not because of the obvious adult content, although that's definitely a part of it, but it's the reality with which these characters are treated. They are not coddled. We're not seeing ultra uber Hollywood happy endings for all of them. We're seeing their real snapshot in time trials and travails, and the love that they're trying to get during the holiday season and throughout their lives is nothing more than what we all want, and we can identify with that. And I think that's where the tears come from, in the joys that Colin Firth and his character experiences, or Liam Neeson in the picture. His son finds his love for what a 12-year-old can get, and us witnessing this is just filled with charm and heart. But there's the pathos and the anger and the dissent that also goes with it, that acts as counterpoint in the film. And that I think is what really makes it great. And that it takes place during Christmas, and Christmas is used as the cornerstone to make these matches that may not have otherwise have happened, is what makes the film particularly poignant, is that these events could have happened at any time, but it was Christmas that brought them all together. And to me, it's a must-see every year.
I don't have anything to add to that, again, because I haven't seen it forever. Sarah, we can either move on, or if you have anything to say about Love Actually.
Love Actually, that was when I was earlier, like, is that considered an alternative movie, or is it? Because I feel like it definitely was an alternative Christmas movie. I feel like it's one that almost started to hit classic movie status because it was so embraced by people. But I still completely agree. It's definitely not a classic, like traditional. I mean, it's a vignettes. It's like a bunch of different stories combining, and definitely has some really like poignant, great stuff in it, and some stuff that's kind of creepy when you look back at it. But that's real life. It's a little bit of everything. I think the only thing that bugs me about that movie every time I rewatch it is that they constantly tell the assistant that she's overweight.
Oh.
And she's like tiny. Like, that's the only thing that I really have a beef with that movie. But
yeah, they refer to her legs as tree trunks. Like, oh, wait, what?
Yeah. That bugs me every time I watch it. But there's a lot of other really, really great stuff in that movie. And if any Walking Dead fans, Andrew Lincoln is in that movie. Also, I never know how to pronounce his name. It's like Chiwetel.
Oh, Chiwetel Ejiofor?
Yes, he is in that movie in a small part. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that went on to like be in a lot of other stuff. They may have not even been well known then, but they've like become well known.
Made it the very next year in that hit film Serenity.
Yeah.
And that was another early Keira Knightley movie.
Yes.
Yeah, she was
I don't
in
know
that.
If she made first that or the first Pirates film.
I think Pirates came first, but like she still had like.
I think she had filmed that first, maybe. I can't remember. They were pretty close to each other, and they might have been like right on the tail end. I think they were pretty close. The comment
that I made when we watched it a few weeks ago was, "My God, she was skinny then. She's just nothing. She's just this stick of a human being." But it also fits her character that she would be so lithe and so desired. Just this amalgamation of the human physical female ideal in this picture. It plays a part because she plays a pivotal character that is loved by two men. One is a requited love and one is not. And it's one of those special moments in the film. And if it was any other actress, it would have diminished the part because she plays that so innocently with a girlish charm. Don't you think?
Yeah, no. I know some people find that storyline creepy, but I actually like that storyline in it. I think it's really interesting, and I think it's like painfully realistic because when you think about it, how many love stories are unrequited. And even, I would say even though he shows her the things and he lets her know his feelings, like he doesn't ask anything of her. He doesn't he's like, I'm going to be okay and I'm going to let you go and I'm going to move on. I just have to let you know this, and I think that's very like mature and well handled personally. But
and the critics that poo-pooed the film because this young actor is running down the gangplank to find his girl on an aircraft and evading the airport security. And this is all post 9/11. And we're like, oh, please, really? Who cares? The suspension of disbelief really has to take hold here, because this is really all about the heart. And please forgive me because I don't remember the actual name of the actor, but this young actor who played the kid, Liam Neeson's son,
Thomas Brody Sanger, who's been in a lot of stuff since.
He is in Queen's Gambit, and he is amazing in that role.
He was in Game of Thrones.
Wait, Game of Thrones? What's that? I thought that's something we all blotted out of our
Everyone's
brains.
forgotten about it. Although, if Love Actually had been made after Game of Thrones, I'm sure Emilia Clarke would have been in it somewhere. She just seems like an actress that would have been in Love Actually if she'd been around then.
Oh, wait, because she was in a Christmas movie last year, wasn't she?
Yeah. That looked similar, kind of in the trailer, only it wasn't multiple storylines, but it looked to be a similar kind of feel, I would say.
Definitely
at least.
Definitely a holiday romantic comedy.
Yeah, the kind of romantic comedy drama.
As quick as we are coming up with the title, it must have been a blockbuster.
Yeah, I don't even remember it being in the theater. I don't remember. I remember seeing the trailer, and I don't remember anything.
Made my point
after that.
I'll look it up. Let's see. Sarah, what is your next film?
I did also have Gremlins on my list. So I will skip to my next one, which is also another movie that really kind of revolves around Christmas. It all takes place on Christmas Eve, and there's a character that's dressed as a Santa through the whole movie, and but I would consider it an alternative Christmas movie, partially because I don't think almost anybody has ever heard of this movie. I'm pretty sure it was straight to video when it came out, even though it's got a huge well-known cast. It also involves the search for a serial killer, and the main characters run a suicide hotline, and there's a horny old guy that keeps calling the suicide hotline wanting to dirty talk with women. But it is called Mixed Nuts. It came out in the 90s, I believe. Like I said, pretty sure it was a straight to video. I don't think it was in the theater. But it has Steve Martin. It has Rita Wilson, Tom Hanks's wife. It has Madeline Kahn. It has Juliette Lewis, Anthony LaPaglia. Liev Schreiber plays a transgender woman in it. Adam Sandler. So it's got a ton of actors in it. But it's just kind of a very quirky, funny, dark comedy where basically these people are running this suicide hotline, but they're probably going to have to close because they don't have any money and they're about to get booted from their office. And then, hijinks ensue somehow. It's been a while since I watched it now. But it's all these characters kind of somehow come together, and they're all having issues, and they're all poor, and they're all struggling at Christmas. And then there's this seaside strangler that they're all scared to death of. And of course that mystery somehow neatly gets wrapped up at the end. But yeah, it's just it's a pretty just kind of, it's actually pretty funny and joyful, and at the end is very Christmas-like, but I would consider it an alternative Christmas movie because A, most people have never heard of it, and B, it definitely suicide, murder, our big running themes in it. So
that is quite the lineup of actors in that one.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how it didn't get a theatrical release, but I mean it's definitely pretty goofy and slapstick. It's definitely pretty out there. It's pretty wacky.
Well, maybe it did, and it just flew under the radar like Krampus did for Gary.
Yeah, it might have. I remember seeing it on video. It's my dad's favorite Christmas movie. Somehow it just tickled his funny bone, and he loved that movie and wanted to watch it like every Christmas.
Well, before I move on to my fourth and final film, the movie we were talking about earlier with Emilia Clarke is Last Christmas, named after a pop song.
That's probably
go.
what I was thinking of, actually.
All right, so how about I'll try and build up to my last one, since you two have done such a good job at building up to yours. This is another Christmas adjacent movie. Another one that takes place partially in England, about a guy who he's a government worker, and his job is primarily to track down threats to both England and to the world, really, and finds himself at the top of a Swiss Alp trying to thwart a plot from his greatest nemesis, who happens to be bald and have a white Persian cat. So his first name is James. His last name, well, it's that guy behind me. But not that guy as portrayed by Sean Connery, because this is On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the only James Bond film to feature George Lazenby. And I may lose my Bond card here from some people, but also it is the best James Bond movie, period. Yeah, again, most of this movie doesn't take place during Christmas. There's actually a huge amount of buildup. This actually, this film, I'd say, is sort of the building block for what we got with Daniel Craig, a much more grounded, realistic take on Bond. The last film, You Only Live Twice, of course, featured an underground volcano lair, and they decided for this next go around, we really need to take the character back to his roots and put him in a very realistic world.
You mean a ski resort?
Well, I mean, it's more realistic than a volcano layer, that's for sure, and more grounded than the crazy underwater fights from Thunderball 2 movies earlier. But so yeah, he once he arrives at this, ski resort in Switzerland, it's Christmas time, and we're in Switzerland, and there's snow everywhere. Pardon me. And I think that of all the movies we've mentioned at this point, this might be the only one in which they wrote their own Christmas song. Because you wouldn't think that for a Bond movie, but there is a song called "Do You Know How Christmas Trees Are Grown?" And it is sung a couple times throughout the film. One of the best uses of it is after Bond has escaped Blofeld's resort, he is trying to flee. He makes it back down to the village, and they're celebrating Christmas and singing this song. And he's just sitting on a bench trying to cover himself in his jacket. And this song is playing, and it talks about one of the lyrics is, do you know how Santa gets around? And it talks about what Santa needs. And the last lyric, of course, is, for all of these verses, is they need love. And as soon as that lyric pops up, here skates in Diana Rigg, who plays his love interest in the movie. Yep. Everyone, all you Game of Thrones fans, Diana Rigg, in the 60s, and just drop dead gorgeous.
And she would have been in the Avengers at that time, right? Or somewhere around
this
there?
one right after, and not the Avengers y'all are probably thinking of. You youngins out there. There was a BBC show that was basically sort of like James Bond for television, starring Patrick McNee. First was Patrick McNee with Honor Blackman, and then Diana Rigg came in the mid-'60s. And then she left the show. I think she left it to do On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So she already kind of had experience doing spy stuff. But anyway, we digress. So
But she absolutely killed it in that picture, though. She
Yep.
really did. She did very good work in that picture.
And what I love about the Christmas stuff about this film is they really do lean into it in a lot of points. Bond is trying to infiltrate this Blofeld's organization incognito in this film, which makes no sense because Blofeld already knows who he is at this point. But continuity is not a thing we worry about with old Bond movies. But when he's discovered, he's knocked out and he wakes up, and the first thing he sees is the angel on top of the tree. And it's really kind of haunting because it's a red angel. And then the camera pans down and Blofeld comes in, and his first line is, "Merry Christmas, 007." And it's Telly Savalas, who I think is the best Blofeld as well. And gives the perfect delivery, perfect holiday delivery. "In a few short hours, the United Nations will receive a Yuletide greeting," as he's decorating the tree with tinsel. And Bond discovers that the whole plot of the film, and then, I'm not going to say spoilers. This is a 51-year-old film. So, and I know a lot of you out there probably only saw the Daniel Craig movies. Go back and watch the old ones. There's some pretty good ones in there. It turns out what Blofeld is doing is he's hypnotizing all of these women. And they're going to go out into the world and spread. Oh, they're going to spread a virus. Doesn't that sound appropriate, everybody? But he gives them all of this material in Christmas presents. So it's like they lean really hard into the Christmas angle in this film. There's even a fight between Bond and one of Blofeld's goons in a little shed that's just filled with Christmas bells. So,
maybe not so Christmas adjacent after all.
Yeah, right.
So it's little warning though. It is also the most depressing James Bond movie by a country mile. And that I would even more so than Skyfall and Casino Royale, which are both absolute downers. I mean, again, this is a 51-year-old film. I don't think spoilers come into play at this point. So they get married. Bond and Tracy get married at the end of the film, and it lasts all of 10 minutes before Blofeld and his head henchmen show up and gun her down. It is absolutely a downer, but it's just such a good movie. It's such a good Bond movie, and like I said, like the Daniel Craig movies owe so much to this one for, back in the 60s when they were really starting to get really goofy. This was right before Roger Moore took over and the series really started to go off the rails with some of their entries. They really were able to get, yes, very much Moonraker. This was really their last chance before Timothy Dalton showed up in the 80s to tell a very grounded story.
Another show.
Yep. And I'm going to be talking a lot about Bond next year leading up to the hopefully theatrical release of No Time to Die. So I'm going to shut up now because I'll be talking about this movie a lot sometime next year, whether or not we see it No Time in theaters, fingers crossed, or someone buys it up and streams it. Please don't be Apple. I don't need a new streaming service.
Let's not jinx it.
Yeah.
Widescreen in a theater or nothing.
Day and I talk about this all the time on the show. Our theory, and I think we talked about it too last time, Gary, is it'd just be really great if when cinemas reopen, we get re-releases of movies like Tenet and Wonder Woman, which, is coming to theaters, but not for us because we don't have any cinemas open anywhere near us, except for you and me, Gary. The Skyline Drive-In is open, but who wants to go to the Skyline Drive-In in December, especially right now?
Your experience there.
well, there are ways to alleviate the bad experience I had, but the weather's been unpredictable. It's been raining a lot recently. December is not a good month to go to a drive-in because you never know what you're going to get.
And really, for a picture like Wonder Woman 1984, can you really watch that for the first time in a drive-in capacity with the sound system that's in your car? and it's being simulcast and expect that to be a theatrical experience. I think that you do better if you've got the gear at home.
Yeah. And honestly, if Tenet had been released to a service like HBO in August, that probably would have been how I watched it the first time. I probably would have been a sucker and dropped, the 15 or whatever it is a month for an HBO subscription, because it's what I'm going to do for the next, 6 months.
The $15 is well worth it for an HBO subscription. They have lots of good stuff on there.
That's true.
Yeah.
Sarah, I was
Did you ever watch the Deadwood movie?
No, I missed the Deadwood movie.
See, that'll be if you get HBO Max, you can watch the Deadwood movie. I was very pleased with it. But that's also for a different show.
Well, we did actually make it through 4 films apiece. So I'm going to jump into the next question here. So what franchise that has not done a holiday special, or television program for that matter, that hasn't done a holiday special, would you like to see do a holiday special? Gary, we'll go with first to you.
It has to be a make good. They have to remake the Star Wars holiday special and do it right. They still haven't done it right.
How was the Lego one? Did you see that?
I have not, but I don't consider Lego canon.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for something that is canon, but actually done in a way that actually plays. I think it can be done. I just don't think. What I do every year is I watch the damn thing just out of morbid curiosity. What did I miss last year? And I keep coming back to the same conclusion that the animated sequence is great. Encapsulate that 10 minutes by itself. It's really well done. It's a good story, and it's a Boba Fett story for that matter. But oh God, the whole Life Day thing and Maud, Art Carney. Oh, it's painful. And just as a curiosity, it's worth having in the library, which of course I do. Anybody that's a complete Star Wars fan has this among their arsenal of things to endure once a year. But I think that Star Wars as a film franchise has enough writing capacity for those that are currently producing, that are show running these things, and with all the things that they've got in the pipeline now, I think it's appropriate that they draw on these characters to tell a Christmas-like story, one that's life-affirming and brings families together, and do that within the canon that actually does make sense, and it's not just cheesy corn with a really badly sung song and really horrible green screen, and bring it to life in a way that is compelling and launches us into a new year with characters that we know and love, and do it in a way that Rotten Tomatoes doesn't find completely offensive.
Well, Gary, I got to say, I have never actually seen the original holiday special.
I will fix that for you.
Oh, I
Me either.
don't think you have to. I think it's on the Blu-rays. I think.
It's around. It's somewhere.
It's certainly somewhere.
The tricky part is finding uncut versions of the thing, because it's been so trimmed down over the years. You don't know if you're getting the whole thing. But do a wiki search and you can see what segments are supposed to be in it. Longer does not make it better.
I've definitely seen screen caps, and it does look interesting and horrifying.
It is both of those things, Ben. Absolutely. It's not as bad as a Flintstones Christmas, but that's a stretch too.
Sarah, what do you want to see? What holiday special?
Well, I would say Disney just announced one that I am pretty excited about, the Guardians of the Galaxy one. I think that will be great fun. Because that's probably what I would have said as some kind of Marvel one, but that one, I think that's the perfect Marvel one to do. I think the only other thing I can think of that would be fun is if we could go back in time before it got kind of weird and creepy, like back when it was in its heyday. I'd have loved to see an Arrested Development holiday special.
Go back to 2003 before the abomination of season 4.
Yeah. The glory, the first 3 seasons, which are, the real show.
For me, I don't know exactly how to call this one a franchise. I mean, I just want to see I want to see we'll call it the Cornetto Christmas special, written and directed by Edgar Wright with Nick Frost and Simon Pegg, and bringing back whoever they can from their wonderful ensemble. You know, get Martin Freeman back. That'd be great. And just
let's get Martin Freeman and everything.
Yeah. Because well, heck, we haven't had a good Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg, Nick Frost collaboration in 7 years now, right? World's End was their last film. He has since moved on to do Baby Driver, and I think he's got a crime film next year. So yeah.
Now you know Nick Frost did do a Christmas special.
Which one?
Doctor Who. 5 years ago.
Of course.
He played Santa Claus.
One day I'll start watching Doctor Who. One day. And then I'll realize that I've been wasting my life all these years.
Well, all the Doctor Who fans that are watching this right now are going, when are you going to talk about Doctor Who? Okay, I'm talking about Doctor Who because I'm a fan. Every year, almost, they release a Christmas special, and it really is iconic Doctor Who fused with Christmas. It really is a thing. And for those that really care, my favorite is Voyage of the Damned, just before season 4. Thank you.
Just so I don't screw this up, Gary, because I know, of course, there's older Doctor Who. I should start with the modern stuff, right?
Yeah, start in 2005.
Okay.
Start with Chris Eccleston and just start working your way. If you need any counsel, I'll be happy to provide necessary therapy and guidance.
Christopher Eccleston is my favorite, by the way. And everybody else likes David Tennant, but Christopher Eccleston is my favorite.
I can see why. He's a darker doctor, and my favorite is the goofy Matt Smith. So we all have our preferences. But we digress. I mean, this is not just another show. This is like another podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, shoot. Okay, it's been almost 2 hours. We've talked quite a lot. We actually talked way more about these movies than Dea and I talked about the old school stuff. But there's 3 of us. We have 3 times the capacity to talk about stuff. So
you win, though, Ben. On Your Majesty's Secret Service never would have occurred to me. Perfect.
And you notice nobody brought up Die Hard as one of their favorite movies.
Well, we didn't really discuss it, you know.
I mean, I don't think Die Hard needs to be discussed on this list. Everyone knows Die Hard. Everyone knows that it is just that movie you look to. It really is the symbol of unconventional Christmas films.
I actually only watched it for the first time last year.
Wow.
But you knew what it was.
Yes, I did.
Like, I think everyone, not even if you don't know what Die Hard is, like, it's really hard to disassociate Die Hard with Christmas because people like me and Gary won't stop talking about it at Christmas time.
Now, I will be personally offended if you don't have rolling over the closing credits of this show, Let It Snow.
Is it public domain?
Because fair use.
YouTube is very tricky about that.
I know. I've gotten flagged for some of the B-roll I used of old Universal monster movie trailers, so I have to be careful.
Oh boy.
One other thing I wanted to say before we start closing up is I actually wanted to do a throwback to the Halloween episode because this is just so delightful for me. This happened right before Christmas. So we talked about all of our favorite Halloween movies. I brought up Horror of Dracula and Curse of Frankenstein as sort of a dual package. And I once again expressed my absolute woes that Warner Brothers had not yet released a high-definition version of Curse of Frankenstein on home video on Region A Blu-ray. Well, 2020 has been an absolute dumpster fire of a year for a lot of us, and very little good has come of it. But you know what? Sometimes dreams come true. last Tuesday. I still don't know why they do this, why they decide, hey, let's release these horror films just in time for Christmas and not for Halloween when everyone wants to buy. They did the same thing with Dracula 2 years ago. I guess they once again think that we really need that color red, because there's lots of red blood in those old Hammer movies.
Or they're just thinking this is when people are going to gift it to people.
Possibly. Well, yeah. When
I mean, there's people out there like us that want to get a bunch of horror movie DVDs for Christmas. So.
And also, I talked about our blog earlier, which that really was how it all started. Was 5 years ago. I wanted to talk about films, and Sarah and I, of course, had talked forever and ever about, hey, we need to start our own website. And so Sarah and I have both written for the blog. And I'm going to say, check out the blog sometime soon so that we actually can get a proper review in for this film, because I'm excited to finally see it in 4K and with audio that's not muffled by my car radio and my car also dinging at me to not drain the battery.
Yeah, I got to grab that so I can see it too. I gotta grab a copy of it because I want to see that.
Going to reiterate, if you're going...
All three of us want to watch it at home, and one of us has seen it in a pseudo sort of kind of theater.
Yep. And I'm going to reiterate again, if you're going to go to a drive-in these days and you have a modern car with all the wonderful little gimmicks, bring a portable radio, because your car is going to yell at you if you have your radio on that long and are draining your battery, which I was not draining my battery. It was just fine. Made it home just fine, car.
Cars.
I know. Stupid cars having feelings. So, here's the thing about trivia. We're not going to do it tonight. That is my Christmas present. That is my Christmas present specifically to Dea, because Dea has just had so much bad luck with the trivia. And we're also at the point now, since there's no episode next week, Sarah, you're already at 5. No one is catching up with you tonight for the rest of this year.
5 episodes in before the end of the year.
You have appeared in, I think this is your 7th.
And I've been in quite a few, I think.
You've appeared more than anyone else. So
no life.
we all have no life
taking
this
care
year.
of my lovely daughter.
None of us have a life.
So congratulations, Sarah. You're the official winner of 2020 trivia on the Sunday matinee. Maybe it'll be a little bit more evenly balanced when we have more than 15 episodes next year, assuming this show continues past the point when we can actually all hang out in real life and there's no need for Zoom in the world. Oh, what a day that'll be. So, expect your prize to be emailed to you at some point soon. And I just got to say, I want to give a shout out to everyone. In 15 episodes too. That's great. That's awesome. We started in August and got 15 episodes in. Couldn't always do one a week, but thankfully this is not a job, so I'm not adhering to some sort of strict corporate policy or anything like that.
And in the context of this show, I mean, how could you, for the price, get 2 hours of such scintillating entertainment with 3 gorgeous people right in front of you? I protest anyone who says otherwise.
I'm with Gary.
Thank you, Gary. So I'm gonna go through here the list of guests I've had on this series so far. Thank you to my 2020 guests, including, of course, Sarah, who has been here for more than half the run, which is very impressive. Well, maybe not more than half, 7. I don't know. But you were there for me, Sarah, for the first episodes, for the ridiculous 3-hour Christopher Nolan episode.
Well, I'm surprised it was only 3 hours when we did his whole filmography.
And when I say 3-hour Christopher Nolan episode, what I really mean is the 2-hour Memento episode and everything else he did. For that Halloween episode.
It seems appropriate.
For Guillermo del Toro, for remakes, and now we're here. Thank you to Dea, who has also been just one of my most consistent guests and just a wealth of knowledge for just about all the classic stuff. To Andrea, who has been probably the third most consistent guest for bringing such wonderful enthusiasm to Marvel, to Disney, and to Halloween. We wish you could have been here tonight. To my cousin Marit, who filled in on episode 2 at the last minute when we had to drop out. To Frank Roberts, who nerded out with me so hardcore about The Thing and The Lighthouse when few other people could pull that off. To Jeanette, for bringing just her wealth of knowledge and unexpected choices to the Halloween movies episode. To Zach Jennison, the only person out there who could come in and talk video games with me when we went off on that one weird tangent. To Daniel Draskevich, my longtime childhood friend who spent 3 hours talking with me about all the old Universal monster films. And finally, the last person to make an appearance on this show this year is right below me from where I'm sitting. And that's Gary Chambers, who contributed a ridiculous wealth of knowledge to the Disney episode. Thank you so much, Gary. It's been an absolute ride. In this, again, garbage fire of a year. And this is one of the very few things that has kept me sane. This and doing Theater Zoom. And this is the only reason I rank this above Theater Zoom is because Theater Zoom is no replacement for real theater.
This is a little easier to do on Zoom.
Yep. Even when we get back to some sense of normalcy, I imagine if I continue the show, this will be the easiest way to do it because it's not easy to get 3 to 4 people in a room together with a camera the way I have set up in my life. You know, Gary's the only one I know who has a good setup, but we can't fit 3 or 4 people in there comfortably.
Oh, well, if comfort is an issue, I can understand that.
If comfort is an issue. So yeah, no trivia tonight. No episode next week. We're going to come back in 2021. Very likely going to open up next year with a spoiler cast episode for Wonder Woman 1984, pending who has and hasn't seen it amongst all of my potential guests. And we'll probably look back at the best and worst of 2020 in film. And there's some good stuff to be said for sure. And I
can't wait for the future 2021 episode where we all have gotten to go to a theater again to talk about that.
And I've already talked about on Facebook and I think Twitter, next year for Halloween, we're going to be talking about The Wolfman, Curse of the Werewolf, and An American Werewolf in London, all in one episode because they're all celebrating ridiculous anniversaries. And next year, around this time next year, we're going to be talking about a major December release that 20 years ago brought the world together and created one of the greatest motion picture trilogies of all time. We're going to be celebrating the 20th anniversary of The Lord of the Rings. Because, wow, y'all.
Can't believe that was 20 years ago. Oh
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's... I was...
You'll just impress me.
I was
Casting directors, this is my pathos look.
Yeah, we get it. I'm younger than Gary. So yeah, I realize Lord of the Rings 20th anniversary is about a year from now, but that is something to look forward to if we are still making this. So yeah, hopefully I'll have both. I'm sure I'll have Sarah back. Gary, I'd love to have you back and talk about crazy stuff. Thank you again.
I definitely am down to keep doing this. So we should, yeah.
Just thank you so much to everybody. This has just been a blast. And for all of you watching out there, please, like, subscribe here on the YouTubes where I know you're watching it because it's the only place you can watch it. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/truthinfilm. Check out the blog at truthinfilm.wordpress.com. Check us out on Twitter at Sunday_matinee. Tell your friends, because I've been saying it this entire time. If this should actually blow up and I can maybe, get some serious cred for this and maybe start making money and quit my day job, that would be just great.
That would make all the horrors of 2020 worth it. No.
And yeah, if anyone else out there wants to join me on that quest to actually get a job that they would enjoy doing, let me know and we'll knock down the doors at all the crazy entertainment outlets and say, hey, look what we do. Pay us. So that's that. Happy holidays out there to everybody. Please stay home. Hang out with your family on Zoom, on the phone, whatever. We are starting to get vaccines. So next year is hopefully going to be something better.
That's why I'm feeling hopeful. We'll get to make it back in theaters next year.
We already talked. Day and I already talked about it. Our best guess. We'd love to be able to say we could go see Black Widow in May when it's supposed to be released, but we're between the two of us thinking November, December next year may be more realistic, given just how many people are going to need this vaccine and how effective it's going to work, how it's going to be. So we'll see. The important thing is we are at the beginning of a very long Return of the King style end. So just please. I don't know
if I want the multiple endings though.
just stay home, wear masks when you need to. Just let's get our butts back in movie theaters, back to live theater, and back to being able to see each other in person for more than 5 minutes at a time. I miss everyone so much. It sucks like not being able to hang out with both of you and everyone. It's crazy. Please be responsible. Happy holidays. Have a good night. We'll see you in 2021.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.